Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from Vital Learning. I am Morten and I'm here as always with my good friend and colleague Lars Henriksen. Привет, Lars.
Привет, Morten. Good to see you as always, and it's always good to be with our listeners out there. We always start off by reminding you of the purpose of this podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. So we hope that today's episode supports you in that. If you're new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 6 to get an introduction to the basics of GTD, the 5 steps. And today's episode is number 81 of the podcast. And today's episode is an interview episode.
That's correct. I have been interviewing Christoffer Endresen. He is the sales manager at Nordic NeuroLabs. And his perspectives are from a fairly, as a fairly young person, is a little interesting, especially for old farts like you and me, at least me. So that, and it is a fresh perspective for those of you who's been around for a while. As you will hear in this interview, he is very interested in learning more, and he's always keen to become better, and he is always improving himself. So, and I think that is for anyone to want to learn getting things done. That's the key of getting. It's not about perfection, but getting a little better every day at how you handle your stuff. So without further ado, please let's roll the interview.
And now our special guest.
I am very pleased to welcome to our podcast Christoffer Endresen from Nordic NeuroLabs. Welcome, Christoffer.
Thank you, Morten.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you are willing to talk to us, and I would like you to start by introducing yourself very briefly. Where do you live? Where do you work? What do you work as? And how old are you? If you'd like to share that with us.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on this podcast. I've been a big fan for a long time, listening to it. So being one of the attendees is really cool. Yeah. My name is Christoffer Endresen. I'm 31 years old. I live in Elverum in Norway, but I'm from the West Coast. Mm-hmm. I work at a company called Nordic NeuroLab, which basically creates medical equipment that is used to map the brain, either for research or pre-surgical mapping. I'm not one of the smart guys in the company. We work with a team of very, very smart people. And I'm sort of responsible for a product called Comfort Solution, which is aimed to help patients reduce stress and anxiety while doing an MRI scan. And the way we do that is actually making their attention go towards watching a movie, watching a TV series, instead of focusing on the claustrophobic experience you might have during an MRI scan. So that's really fun. We work with hospitals all over the world. We work on developing the product. We work on the marketing. We work on many things. So it's a very fun place and cool place to work.
Yeah, I just want to contradict what you said, that you're not one of the smart persons in the company. I do not agree with you. You are.
Well, we're different types of smart, I think, and we supplement each other. So, I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate when we go to exhibitions and when we work with people that I'm not the smartest one in the room, and that I know for sure. But I think that's a good thing.
Well, we will find out if you're GTD smart throughout this podcast. So I just wanted to for those of you of those of our listeners who don't know what an MRI is, that is the big machine where you are sliding in on a kind of like a movable bed that goes into this big machine. That it makes a lot of noise. I remember because I've been doing that before a couple of times. And I do want to be distracted when I do that. So, and I just have a practical question for you, because that's kind of popped up in my brain, is that when you are in there, how can you understand anything? Because it is so loud. How can you hear something?
Well, that's a cool thing about the guys at Nordic NeuroLab, the developers. They're really good at creating equipment that or hardware that allows you to both see things. So it could be a TV screen, it could be, you could call it VR goggles, and even audio equipment that is actually possible to have inside the MR scanner, because it is a big machine. It's a big magnet. And if you were to take your AirPods in there, then it would be a very unsafe environment for you to be.
I would guess that it is some pieces of metal there, and you're, yeah. Okay, so, but this show is not about being inside an MRI machine, but for those of you who don't know what it is, that's what it is. And it is what it is. So I would like you to take us back to the first time you came across getting things done, and how did you come across it?
I was thinking about that later today, and I really can't remember how I got into getting things done. But I remember ordering the book and reading the book, and I saw that there were so many principles there that made sense. And I did my best in order to implement it. Of course, when there's a long way from knowing about a thing and actually doing it and practicing it.
For sure.
But I did my best, and it made sense, and it worked. But I didn't successfully implement it. That I definitely see now. I thought I did. And then I did some improvements, read the book again. I saw some lectures from David Allen on YouTube, implemented more. Failed, tried again, failed, continued.
So that leads me perfectly into my second question here. So what was your early struggles? What, be concrete with us as if you can. What did you fail at?
Well, I think in the beginning, the habit of writing things down was a difficult one. Because there were so many things happening in the head, and you stored it in the head. There were many projects. I am of the nature of throwing more balls up in the air that I can catch. So, and I don't think I'm alone when it comes to that.
You are not.
No, I'm not. But writing everything down, that was a struggle. But I also think that the way that I organized had also a huge impact on that. So I tried different ways, learned some, improved some. And I also think that the most difficult one was the weekly review. That was an unattractive one, you might say, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people feel that before they get started, but I just want to be honest with you. You know, we've been talking before, so this is not new for us that we talk about this. But to have a kind of an inner resistance to look at everything I think it's natural. But you just then have to remember what lies in the other end of that. Task that you need to do is a weekly review. So I guess that when you got through that was good for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. For a long period now, I've done weekly reviews every week. Some more in detail than others, of course, because life happens. But for me, it would now be unnatural not to do it. I think I skipped it once, and that was an unproductive week in many ways. So on Monday, I usually do it on Fridays, but on that Monday, I figure out before lunch that I need to do a weekly review. just do the process and then continue.
Exactly. So if you don't remember when you started exactly, but you started somewhere in practicing, and you got the book, and what would you say? Was there a turning point for you where you kind of went from struggle to more getting into the methodology?
Yeah, definitely. For me, the turning point was really when I decided to make the investment on getting a coach, and that's when we started. I think the story for me contacting you the first time we spoke, and then I didn't commit, and that was because I didn't fulfill a commitment or a promise to deliver, and that I took it really hard. And I knew that I had to change, but at that time I don't think I was necessarily ready. So, but then I got back on my feet, and then I went on like normal, and I ended up crashing again. So that was probably the point where I saw that. No, not the time to really commit to this, because for me, one thing is that you can learn this on yourself, and I definitely think you can learn a lot on yourself. But there comes a point in a time where you really need to make changes fast, and that's when I made the investment, and the return has been really good. It's a big change. It went from a really messy house. Not just a house, but in my head, to a really clean one. And it's funny looking back, wondering, how did I manage?
Yeah, good. I'm happy to hear that. It has had a positive impact on your life. But okay, good. I'm sure that the listeners would be interested to hear a little bit about your technical setup. So would you take us through how are you technically set up? For instance, if you start off, like, what kind of list manager do you use, and how do you handle reference material? Do you like to?
For me, I use Microsoft To Do. There I have all my lists, everything organized in. It's a lean, mean machine, you might call it.
Yeah.
It's where I sort of gather everything, most of the things, and that's where I organize. It's connected to Outlook. It's connected to Teams. So for me, it works really well. I have the app on my phone, so that allows me to capture on the go or when I'm outside. So it works fine for me. There are different projects listed in terms of projects, and then I use the hashtag in order to connect the next action. I can also link up project files from OneNote into the specific projects, etc. So, and that helps a lot. So when I decide on working on a project, I can click on the hashtag, and then I see what the next action is. Not all the actions, but the next action. And to review, let's say if I've gone through the natural planning method, I have that as a Word file that's stored on the project. So it's almost like drag and drop for me. So it's really good.
Do you have a specific tool or system for your reference files?
No, I don't have a specific tool other than using OneDrive. That's mainly what I've used so far. I haven't gone too much into reference files yet. When it comes to getting things done, it's lifelong learning. So it's implementing one thing at a time is also one thing that we spoke about. It's key to having lasting change. Exactly.
So I'm not saying that you need to have anything but OneDrive. This is fine. Just as long as anyone who's listening to this, you need to have a place to put your files and reference material. and you need a structure that supports your project, so that you are, if you need to refer to them at some point, you need to find them, which is just find what you need when you need to find it. That's the reference system. However you do that, it's up to you. But we got some suggestions, as David would say.
Yeah. And I think also I was reflecting back to one of the first sessions we had. We did a lot of cleaning because I already used to do from Microsoft. We cleaned it up, and it was like a totally new setup and software. That made me more organized in many ways, and that I sort of kept that structure. Done some few tweaks based on what do I need now, but that's also part of the weekly review, is just look at not just the task but also the structure. Can I remove something? Can I make it cleaner, leaner?
I used to tell people, or I still do, getting things done is not about perfection, it's about direction, and which is, how can you make your system a little more functional? How can you make your own practice a little more functional every day? And when you have your weekly review, of course, that's an ample opportunity to have a look at your system and say, how can I make this a little better? A lot of people don't do that, by the way, have that kind of critical view at their system, which I would highly recommend anyone listening to this and do as Christoffer. Be like Christoffer. Look at your system with some critical eyes and clean house when you need to, and make it lean and mean, so it's fast and easy to use. And
I think one of the things that are really important when it comes to getting things done is clarity and remove friction. Those are the two things that I constantly remind myself. I remember you telling me, look for friction. Where is it friction? And find that, relieve that, and that makes the whole process much, much easier.
Exactly. Yeah. Friction awareness is important. I don't know. I just want to tell you a little anecdote here, because there are many anecdotes that I could tell, and I can make it very specific one. But it is like I work with clients. They have like you, up and coming young people, to the elderly, the CEOs of big multinational companies, presidents, etc., and everyone in between, and I don't know what is happening with some people. Are looking at they have very old and not very functional phones, smartphones, and for most people who are using a smartphone are using, or maybe even PCs that's not functional. I had a client who's a COO lately, not long time ago, and as a coaching client, and we went through his technical setup, and he had a PC that it looks like somebody has been, it was so worn down. It looks really old, but it's just well used, and it took like long time to start, and it was not very functional, and all the keys, I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but I think some of the keys on his keyboard don't work exactly, and this is like, ask yourself, where is your friction? It's sometimes very easy to see. If you have a tool in a toolbox that you need to be productive, make sure that knife is the sharpest, best knife you can have. And if you don't have a sharp, good knife, get a good knife that's sharp, and make sure that you look at it and keep it sharp and replace it every now and then.
It's like chef says that the most dangerous tool is a dull knife. Yeah,
exactly. You will cut yourself. But and it's not in getting things done. It's more like you are allowing friction to be in your life and practice of getting things done and your work. And that in itself is, slowing you down. Getting things done is about slow down to be able to speed up. That's one of the taglines for getting things done. And if you slow down your processor enough to understand that just maybe I should have a new knife, or maybe I should sharpen the knife I have. That is a good good to remember and good to be aware of.
Yeah, and that's how I view the weekly review. Is that's the moment in the week where you actually sharpen your knife and you get much clearer on things. So for the next week, you're prepared, and during the weekend you can be present with whatever you're doing.
Exactly. So that brings me to my next question: is what would be your key takeaways from practicing the getting things done methodology? What's in it for you? Why are you, Christoffer, doing getting things done? What rewards do you get?
Well, I think that when there's always a reward for being more productive.
Yeah.
There's a high reward there. And I think there's always like levels and layers. I believe that taking on more responsibility sort of makes you go up a level in life, whether that's private, career, wherever it might be. But you also need to be able to deal with that responsibility. You need to carry it. And like I said, I have probably a tendency to take on too much responsibility and not being able to carry it. And that has made me crash a couple of times. But with getting things done, then first of all, you don't take on responsibility unless you're ready for it. That's number one. And the second part is that you have a tool, you have a system and a strategy that allows you to take on that responsibility. So it's an essential growth tool in many ways. And at the same time, it's while you're being productive, while you're trying to reach goals, you also have to enjoy life. If you don't do that, what's sort of the point? So you can manage to balance those two things. That is what is for me like the benefit of getting things done.
So create success and having fun, if I'm going to sum it up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this calm down and speed up is one of my favorite phrases, and getting things done really allows you to do that. You calm down, speed up, and you become more productive.
Great. So as my last question to you, I would like you to take my listeners on, give them advice. If someone of our listeners are curious and interested of learning getting things done, where would you recommend them to start?
Ooh, that's a good question. This might be not a normal advice, but one of the things is try to implement it at different places, like doing your laundry. Create an in-basket where you collect all the things in, and then go to IKEA and buy some white buckets. They have like these trays where you can put different things in. That's when you organize. So it's like collecting. It's figuring out what it is. Is it a sock? Is it a shirt? And based on that, you put it into different organization buckets, and then that's a more practical visual way to do it, and it's a great way to practice the 5 steps. You can even do a weekly review, checking that everything's been washed. But for me, it's having to do those things, finding more practical visual things that I can practice. That has helped a lot for me. And then sort of trying to implement it in every aspect. Like my girlfriend, she was a bit stressed about things she wanted to do around the house. So we went around the house and we gathered stuff, writing everything down on the list. And then we have a list, and then we created a system using the same principles from GTD to have a list that we can work on, and then taking down small things and get moving. and just doing that takes away a lot of stress. And I could even see it on her that it took away a lot of stress. And at the same time, you get the benefit that you get to do it together. So it's a relationship building tool in many ways. Could probably save marriages. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. But, I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm sure.
But it's also when working with other people as well. Try to, as a team, do the exercise of the natural planning method. It's going to be a more dynamic meeting than you ever had. I've done it without people knowing that it is getting things done, or knowing that it's a natural planning method.
Sneaky
bastard. But it's worked because it engages people much more. You get to be creative without being shut down. You get to dream, and then you can later go into the nitty-gritty details, and you get clarity.
Exactly. And for those of you who are now a little intrigued about the natural planning model, we have an episode dedicated to that. So if you go to our backlog in the podcast, you can find more information about that.
And that's also a good point in terms of how do you learn best? Do you learn by reading? Do you learn by listening? Do you learn by seeing, talking about it? I know that when we did some mapping in terms of, for me personally, the best way for me to learn is to talk about it.
Yep.
So I talked about it.
You were that guy.
Yeah, we're that guy. And but to me, it's been helpful, truly, and repetition is always key. So, I still listen to the audiobook. I still listen to the podcast, and every time you listen to it, even though you listen to it maybe 10 times, you hear something new that you can implement, and that makes it better. So I would do that as well.
Yeah, that is I still read the book, and one of the things I've been philosophizing over, if that's even a word, and that is to why does it feel like a new book? Why do you find new things in it? And it is I think it is like this, that if you look at your life, or you are getting older every day. I'm sorry, guys, we are, all of us. And if you then take a slice of today and see what is your life like now, and then compare that to when your life, how your life and knowledge is in a year or 6 months or 5 years, you're at a different place. And your practice has changed when it comes to getting things done. You will learn more things about it, and you will go, that's what he meant. It's kind of like there's a small David Allen would call them epiphanettes, small epiphanies that comes, this is what it is. Now I understand more. And you connect dots that you don't see before.
Sure.
Yeah. Getting things done is sorry?
Yeah, I would add to it, you're not just only in a different place, you're a different person as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a part of the growth process. You grow. I'm not the same kid I was when I was 10, or the same person. I've grown since then, hopefully. And I'm hopefully not the same person I was last year. And next year, I hope that I'm a better version, and that's what I'm working towards. So it's when you then read the book again or listen to the podcast episode again, you're a different person in a different situation, and it makes a totally different sense.
Exactly. Just for rounding this off, I know, because we've been working together, that you've been looking at the horizons of focus model. And I know that a lot of our listeners are, not looking at that part of getting things done. For those of you who are fresh to this, getting things done it's like a 2-axis, X and Y axis, where the X axis is the control part with the 5 steps of capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. And then we have the horizons of focus, which is the Y axis, where you start at top of it, your purpose, your values, your principles, go down to your vision. How does it look when you live your purpose, values, and principles? What are your long-term goals under there? And what is your areas of responsibility? And then you come down to projects and then next actions, which is the everyday, what you do today. And for ensuring that you have coherence between what you do in your everyday life and what you would like to achieve on the really long term. So I know you've been working with that. And how would you say that has changed you as a person? And has it changed how you work and how you live and how you relate to people?
Yeah, yes and no. I think that in terms of, I've always sort of, for me, it's more natural to see the big picture. I sort of tend towards more the big picture thinking rather than small details. But for me, like purpose, that's something that I was thinking about when I was probably 15, 16 years old. We're starting reflecting on that. So for me, that was pretty clear. And I think for many people, they haven't even thought about that. It depends, but it's a great exercise. But for me, the most important part was to get clarity in terms of what are my responsibilities. Are they aligned with what I would like to achieve? Are they aligned with my purpose? And then also going down into the details in terms of what are the projects connected to that responsibility? What projects do I need to initiate in order to fulfill that responsibility? And then put in the tools in terms of how I plan and how I follow up with those tasks. That helps a lot, because once you see that you're having progress, I think the best definition of success or a successful person is one that's progressively realizing a goal or a worthy ideal. That was, I think it was Earl Nightingale that had that definition back in the days. But once you start to take action, that means that if your next action is aligned with your responsibilities, your vision, your purpose, your values, then you're sort of, that means that every time you take that action or take a next action, you're one step closer to what you would like to be and realize. And that makes you a success. It's not necessarily getting there, it's moving towards it. And when you have that connection and it gives you a sense of confidence that is, it's hard to put a price on it, but it's worth a lot. And then you also you reduce the risk of the opposite, which is having a bad conscience because you're not following up. You're stressed because, so many things. you're lagging behind. You haven't sort of renegotiated a commitment or wherever it might be. So having that sense of calmness, which you get from doing that, well, if you don't have it, you know where to get it.
It's available for you if you want it, which is, And
one thing that I thought about also that I think is very important now that there are uncertain times, right? And one of the things that's important when it comes to collecting your thoughts is also try to collecting your fears. It's like, or worries. Because if you don't collect them, you store them in your head, and that will create chaos. So processing them through the system, that also helps a lot for people.
Indeed. Write your worries down, park them on my worries list, and look at them once a week, and then you can forget them in between. I'm not, and it may sound easy, but it actually does work. If you promise yourself, I will look at them once a week, and your brain trusts that, the brain has the ability to let go of things. That's the beauty of it. So, okay, thank you so much, Christoffer, for your very incisive thoughts and your participation in our podcast. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that? They want to reach out and say, hi, Christoffer. Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can probably find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn. Just write in the name. If they're international, they won't be able to find the middle name because of all the letters.
Yeah.
But you can definitely find me on those two medias. I don't use much of my time there. I'm more stuck in my to-do list or talk to people there in front of me. But definitely, it's say hi, say hello. That it means a lot. It's always good to give.
Indeed. So if you want to get contact with Christoffer, go to LinkedIn or Facebook and search for his name. That's Christoffer with a double F, not a PH, but a double F. And Endresen, Endresen. Endresen. So look him up and say hi if you want to. I'm sure he will be happy to hear from you. Sorry?
Yeah, and have a chat.
Yeah, we'll have a chat. Okay, thank you so much again, Christoffer, and I wish you the best for the future. I know that you have a very interesting career where you are developing and enjoying what you're doing. So keep it up, and I look forward to talking to you at some later point in time.
Yeah, and thank you, Morten, and thank you, Lars. Keep on doing the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. And Lars, what do you think?
That was fun. That was fun. Good to hear from someone like Christoffer with his enthusiasm for the methodology. And, like you said in the beginning, it's always interesting to hear from the younger generation because they grew up in a really different world. A lot of our work is really addressing the speed at which things changes, and it just has been obviously increasing over the years now exponentially. And it's so interesting to see how they grow up and live in a different world, interact differently, and how GTD still works.
Indeed. So thank you to Christoffer for being part of our podcast, and until next time, you will take us out first.
Let's do that with a quick reminder to head on over to vitallearning.eu. You know this, but just a quick reminder, head on over there, have a look around on the beautiful, relatively new site out there. Find more about all the different offerings, about GCD, about the other methodologies that we can teach you to help you become even more productive, better at communicating, better in the category of leadership. So have a look at that, see the different offerings there. If you're outside the Nordics, head on over to cruciallearning.com to find your local partners. Also, a quick reminder, summer camp, GCD summer camp in Denmark, June 17 to 18, 2023. Keep that marked in your calendar. The sign-up form should be out now any day. And lastly, as always, we really hope that you find these episodes valuable. We love to hear from you on what you gain from these episodes. So please do let us know. And if GCD has made a difference in your life, then please help us spread the message, get the podcast out to more people by giving it a rating on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, Audible, wherever you listen. It really helps the discoverability. So thank you so much to those of you who have already done so.
Indeed. And until next time, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.